Today's episode is presented by Lodestar, the fee experts.
Hi everyone, welcome to a special episode of Lending Leaders. We are here in the Absolute Home Mortgage offices with CEO Matt VanFossen, also CEO of the big point of sale. Got that right? Good. This is his first Loadcast, as he likes to call it.
Yes, Loadcast.
So Matt, thanks for letting us put a camera in front of you.
Yeah.
As part of this meeting.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
And thanks for coming out to headquarters. Check it out. Show us some great software we're going to move over to.
Thank you. Yeah, we're in sunny Fairfield, New Jersey right now. So on the road. Leighton and I were talking. We never really do that many sales road trips. So
Yeah.
We were excited at the novelty. I feel like when I started the company, I did a lot.
Yeah, traveling up the lovely New Jersey Turnpike.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was easy. Anyways, so you're very present on social media, present in the regulatory and the mortgage environment. I'm going to my first MBA regulatory conference coming up in about a month. We'd love just what to expect and also how's this year going to be different.
So there's a lot going on. This is, if there was any year to watch the regulatory climate, it's this one. So you're picking a great conference. And I think that the word that's up in the air is uncertainty. You know, our trade associations like MBA are going to become more prevalent than ever. So the big talk of the town over the past month has been the new administration. Really, most recently has been what's going on with the CFPB. And I think that you're going to see a lot of people talking about that in multiple ways because, when we look at the current administration's actions and what they've done, it looks like they came in, they have DOGE and they're looking at deregulation. It looks like they went for an all-out halt of CFPB operations to the extent that Director Chopra was asked to resign or got fired, whichever way you want to take it. We saw 2 interim directors and now a nomination for a final director. And the action so far has been hands off the desk, don't show up to work. It looks like they're getting rid of the building and returning the building back to the landlord. And that leads to a litany of questions because even if the CFPB is not necessarily shut down, because I don't think that they have the legal authority without an act of Congress to shut it down. What you will see, which is interesting, is the laws still exist. So, okay, let's say the CFPB is not acting anymore. They're abstainably handcuffed. They're not examining. They're not making new rulemakings. That doesn't unwind the laws that are already in place. That doesn't mean that as independent mortgage bankers, you can go do whatever you want. In fact, it presents a very interesting arena of self-regulation, of self-policing, because just as easily as the current administration removed the regulatory oversight, if you do see another administration change to a different party, you still have the statute of limitations. So, anything or acts that, let's say, you violate or any regulatory laws that you violate during this period, the CFPB might not be there to catch you, but if you see another administrative swing, then you can see them 6 years down the road come back and actually issue fines, violations, sanctions for those items. So I think you have that, which is a big sector we're going to be watching, is what's going on with the CFPB. And then I think there's a whole bunch of other trickle-down items for states. In the absence of the CFPB, you could see the states step in and start having heavier enforcement actions. In fact, when Director Chopra left, right before he left on January 14th, he sent a letter to all the state regulatory authorities saying, hey, this is your right to regulate. This is what you have the authority to actually go in and do. It's almost like he knew that this current administration's intention was to, burn down the CFPB.
He always joked about why he was still there for 2 weeks, right?
Everyone
thought he was going to be gone and give him a chance to get that letter out.
And I think now we know. We know that, one, they were probably saying, hey, what's the point of appointing somebody if we're looking to get it taken down? And, at some point through these interim directors, maybe they figured out, oh, wow, well, we can't really remove it. There's a regulatory statute that requires it to be in place. So what does it look like if it's propped up on a kind of like a agency that's there, but not actively working or trying to actively unwind previous rulemakings, right? You could see that too. You can see a director come in and their entire initiative is unwinding stuff that has been done.
Well, do you feel like that's going to happen? I mean, obviously, there's a pretty near and dear to our heart. Do you feel like they're going to get the operations in place to actually unwind things versus just a permanent pause?
So it comes down to what's signed into law and what's not. So when you look at things like Dodd-Frank, if you look at the SAFE Act, to unwind these, you would need a simple majority in the House and a super majority in the Senate. And with the filibuster, I don't think they're going to get that. You're not going to see that. They don't have the votes for it. They don't even have all the Republican votes needed to get to 55%. You're very unlikely you're going to get 60% of the senators or 60 senators to do it. So then what you wind up with is things like TRID. These are actions that are in Regulation Z. They're signed into law. You're not going to see that get unwound. Now, what you can see if the CFPB is adamant, in my own opinion, rulemaking, they're in the realm right now of no rulemaking. Well, maybe they start rulemaking, but make final orders that soften the blow of some of the stuff. I think a good example is like MLO compensation, right? The law says that we need to have certain controls in place for regulating MLO comp. Well, can the CFPB come in and make a final rulemaking, for example, for like a provision for demonstrable price competition? Yes, the rules are in effect, but if a loan officer shows they were getting shopped, they can reduce their compensation. And they can make a rulemaking and post it to the site, if the site is still working, because it was taken down. Yep. And then at least if there is an administrative change, if a regulator tries to come in, 5 years down the road, at least the IMBs and the mortgage community itself can have a final rulemaking to point to and say, yeah, but there was this final rulemaking, we were following agency guidance and get some level of a safe harbor. I guess in short, I think that's how you'll see them navigate it. Is that they're probably not going to be looking to pass laws on it, on the complete dissolution of some of this regulatory policy, but you might see some guidance on
regulatory cover, so to speak.
Yeah. And they're also going to be super cautious of what could be construed as non-consumer friendly. That's too bank friendly, right? They are going to be cautious on. I don't think fee tolerances will go away, for example.
Well, the consumer would just pay the bill in that, and ultimately it's defeating, I think, because then it's going to be way more expensive to buy a house,
right? Which
isn't going to help anyone.
Correct. And you guys don't
near to my heart,
right? You don't want to see the fee regulation.
No, why do you think I'm driving to DC?
Exactly, right? You're like, no, we need these consumer protections. Yeah. Cures are a good thing.
Okay. I started the company in 2013 when I saw it coming into effect.
Right. And, that's an interesting conversation of what are the trickle down or downline effects of deregulation for the mortgage industry?
Yeah.
We saw so much technology over the past decade get created because of these regulations, get implemented.
Right.
There's an entire ecosphere of economic fintech solutions that have been developed out of the need in the industry to comply with these regulations. Yeah. I think when you look at MBA's stance on it, you look at the general industry stance, we look at the stuff, we say, well, you know what? We did a great job at implementing.
Yeah.
Was it painful to do? Sure. Was it expensive? Yeah. But we made this investment.
Do we want to do it again? No,
we don't want to do it again. We don't want to see this stuff unwound. And here's the thing: it kind of works.
Yeah.
Right. Default rates are I don't say historic lows, but are very low right now.
We want to unwind this only to rewind it in 4 years.
Exactly. Right.
No.
So I think that we'll see some easing of regulatory burden, but a lot of what's in place is going to stay.
Yes. So in this environment too, you're running a tech business, a mortgage business. What are the opportunities in your opinion? Because regulation creates opportunities, deregulation creates opportunities.
Yeah.
It's a lot about the threats.
I think that the biggest opportunity is back to core mortgage, is origination, is that you're going to see more consumer confidence. Hopefully we'll see some level of interest rates decline. Typically speaking, if we see an economic environment where, my goal target rate would be like 5.25. We can get 5.25 30-year fixed rates.
Yeah.
What's going to happen is it'll have housing prices go normalize and be stable at a 3.5 to 5% annual increase, which would be great. Mm-hmm. We can see a level of normalcy in refinance. We'll also be able to see, let's face the fact, consumer debt's the highest it's ever been. But people are wearing their 3.5% interest rate as like a face tattoo at this point.
Yeah.
They don't care that
paying 12% or more.
28%, right? So, I'll talk to a consumer and be like, hey, you got $40,000 in credit card debt. You're never getting out of this thing. Let's bring you from 3.5 to 6.5. And they're like, absolutely not. And I'm like, but it saves you for $3,000 a month. I don't care. I'm not getting rid of my 3.5% mortgage rate. Talking them from 3.5 to 5.25
Right.
is a lot less sticker shock than seeing that 6.5, 7.25. So, when I look at the lending side, the mortgage side, I look at the opportunity, right, of saying it's going to be a little bit easier to do business. We'd be able to streamline some stuff. It would be nice to be in a less regulatory burdensome environment. And then from the software side, same thing. We're looking at point of sale, and we said, well, point of sale is origination.
Yeah.
How do we, if you want to go capture market share, how are you streamlining the consumer experience?
Yeah.
How are you layering the automation of all these great vendor systems that are out there?
Yeah.
How do we make less people do more? Right. And how do we actually get more business out of our customers through that consumer experience?
And I think that's happening now with these rates are kind of getting normalized, right? They're being over 6%, 7% long enough where people say, okay, if I want to buy a house, I should buy a house. A mortgage company, if I want to switch my POS, now's the time to do it. So hopefully the longer that happens too, we just, I'm happy to operate on level ground, right? And then when we have that, we're in good shape. When things are declining, that's when.
Well, there's definitely an awakening. It's interesting. We see these pendulum swings in the mortgage industry. We went from like the best times we ever saw, 2020, 2021, even parts of 2022. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, 2023, these interest rate hikes start coming in. We go from 3.5% to 7.5%. We saw 8% at one point. And it like almost shocked the industry. It threw all of us into this consolidation mode. And if you're dealing with consolidation, staff layoffs, budget cutting, you don't have time or the resources to make systematic changes. So it almost put the vendor side of the business at like a stop. It came to a halt for like a year and a half. And now what we're seeing is lenders starting to say, okay, we have to start innovating again. We have to start streamlining. It's not this desperate stuff of cost cutting. We have to start, reinvesting. So as we see margins come back, maybe we'll see a little bit of rates decline. As we see our lenders in the industry overall stabilize, it's going to make the vendor sector a lot stronger because we're going to be back into normal sales cycles again versus nobody buying anything for 18 months.
You don't have to tell me that was a tough couple of years.
And you might not see a lot of legacy vendors make it. Unfortunately,
I go on the lender side, right? Yeah, consolidation. Yeah,
and that's the scary part. I love competition. I love competition from the lender side. I love competition from the vendor side. I'm very outspoken about it, but I help my competition. People from other mortgage companies reach out to me. Hey, Matt, can you help me with this project? Absolutely. I never look at it as competition. I look at it as, hey, we learn together. We help each other out. Let the loan officers in the streets fight the battle. Let the generals be able to break bread. But in the vendor space, if you have legacy technology has a shelf life. And if you're not going in and putting new products out, you're not innovating, then you could see your technology get sunset.
Yeah, we could talk about this a lot longer, I'm sure. But wrapping up here, we always ask our guests the same question. So what is your lodestar? What gets you fired up about this in the morning? Getting out of bed, go running both businesses, continue to be such an advocate.
I love mortgage.
Yeah.
I've been doing mortgage since I was 17, 18 years old. I'm addicted to it. When my phone rings and it's a client, I can't not inherently go into loan officer mode and take an application, right? That's what's the driving force, right? When you look at your career and you look back, it's my 20th year doing that. I look back and I say, okay, if I made an impression on the world, what would I do? Well, I've originated or oversaw over at this point $10 billion in residential originations, right? Thousands of families we've helped get into houses or save money or change their economic scenario. I say, okay, it may be very broad, but I look back and I say, that's a motivating factor to keep going, to keep driving this vision forward, right? And, from the tech standpoint, I want a nice streamlined system, man. I want a software built by loan officers for loan officers that gives them a quality of life. When I look at why we did it, I think about how a loan officer, they have to put their life to the side constantly. It doesn't happen Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. It's Saturday afternoon, you're at your kid's ball game, you get that phone call from a realtor that says, hey, I need an updated pre-approval. Well, if I can take that process from 15 minutes and turn it into 2 on your cell phone, now I've impacted people's lives. So that's what drives me.
That's an awesome answer. That's one of my favorite too. Well, thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thank you.
I guess, coining that term.
Yes.
So everyone, thank you for listening. We'll talk again soon.
Great.